Hello and welcome back to True Crime Guys podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and I think Andy snuck in here.
Choo choo.
Get off of that train, Andy.
I'm riding the rails today, Michael, for this case.
Oh, God. You got to be... This case is off the rails.
I was so surprised that we had not covered this one. This one, the researching and hearing about this case, I'm not trying to make too many jokes, but it hits you like a freight train. Like it is there. It's so shocking somehow, like brutal and quickly and spread it how it is at the same time. You're like, is this one person or is this like a crew of people at the same time? It's weird.
Right. It's like all the cases we know about happened in a very close thing, but it was kind of the end of the crime wave. This is one of the few serial killers where they look back and they go, oof, we really don't know how big his wave of terror really was, you know. But we're getting ahead of it. We're getting ahead of ourselves, Andy. We are.
Sorry about that, guys.
That's all right. That's all right. First, I got to tell you guys, you can get these episodes early and ad-free on Patreon. Patreon.com/True Crime Guys. And these episodes also have a little bonus content, don't they, Andy?
They have a little bit of bonus content.
Usually about 15 minutes. I say in this episode was... I think 15, 17 minutes of bonus content where me and Andy, we just talk, we catch up for the week, whatever. Just kind of warm up before the episode.
Get the pipes all nice and clear.
That's right.
Get those voices nice and mic ready.
Yeah. And, we get to let our guard down a little bit.
Yeah, right.
But again, that's patreon.com/True Crime Guys. You can also check out our other shows here on the free platforms, Strange and Unexplained and Cryptic Soup with Thina and Kylie. New episodes of Cryptic Soup come out every single Wednesday. And make sure you give them a follow on Instagram as well at Cryptic Soup Pod. And while you're on social media, give us a follow at True Crime Guys. Make sure you check out all the reels and shenanigans there. And Thina is also keeping you up to date on all of our recent cases as well as things that are current in true crime news. She does a great job of that.
Helps some of those headlines I got to find every once in a while.
That's right, Andy. Speaking of headlines, we did Headlines and Shenanigans last week, our monthly Patreon exclusive, where I actually get to take a week off for once.
Oh, right. Yeah. I got to carry the load around here.
That's right.
You get to see me flex my chops.
We appreciate that very much, Andy. I appreciate that. But today, we are not talking about current things in the news. We're actually talking about a pretty old case, like at the year of the capture and arrest, 26-year-old case. Yeah, actually, we're a little behind the curve, Andy.
We're going back in the 90s.
We are right in that sweet spot. Because today, we're talking about a Mexican serial killer who rode freight trains all across the U.S. His name was Ángel Maturino Reséndiz. And his OP was usually brutal blows to the head, often caused by objects found in the victims' homes. The media nicknamed him the Railroad Killer, and he was at one point the FBI's most wanted fugitive. Yeah, not top 10. He was number uno.
Top 10.
Yeah.
The top of the 10.
The top of the 10. The FBI linked Reséndiz to 15 murders across several states in the 1990s, with only one survivor to tell the tale. Reséndiz would escape capture by being voluntarily deported back to Mexico anytime he would be arrested. So that's what would take the FBI, and it would take basically the full effort of the FBI and the railroad killer's own sister to finally bring him to justice in 1999.
This was, like I said, this was a wild case that I was actually pretty shocked that I had not heard of this one. Very rarely do we see somebody with this kind of carnage to their name that usually has not kind of been more prevalent in the true crime world. But
no joke. Yeah. Graphic warning in this episode. Like,
this guy has been described as evil and just brutal. This is not a lot. This is just, it's bad in some of his killings. So very, very Richard Ramirez-esque.
Carnal, I think, was a good word, honestly.
Yeah. I got a lot of, like I said, I got a lot of Night Stalker vibes. Just like kind of just doing evil shit for the sake of it to an extent, like justifying it in your own way, but doing some evil shit.
No doubt. All right, Andy, let's roll that intro. Let's get into it.
All right.
I'm not really sure how long he had been watching us, but he had been watching us there for some time. He really kept on Chris the whole time. He, went through Chris's backpack. He had Chris get down on his knees. We were on the side of the tracks at the time. He had Chris get down on his knees and, went through his backpack and, trying to find money. That, I guess, is what he was doing, but he didn't find anything. And that's when we started saying, you do want our car, ATM cards, credit cards. And he just kept saying, no, I don't want any of that. Just we could not figure out what exactly he wanted. When he was finished going through Chris's backpack, he actually tied up Chris's arms with his backpack, which I didn't quite realize that he was doing at the time. I couldn't really see what was happening, but he tied up Chris's arms, and then he came over to, I wasn't far from Chris, he came over to me and took off my belt and tied my hands behind my back with my belt. And, that's when we knew we were really in trouble, but again, we didn't know what this guy had. He had a bag with him. We didn't know if he had a gun, what he had with him to hurt us with. So, we're just trying to comply with whatever he wanted. And he actually pulled Chris. We were kind of up on the side of the tracks. He pulled Chris along the gravel and along the grass into the grass beside the tracks, and it looked painful. So I just kind of followed along. I went down to the side of the tracks with them, and that's when he had us get down on our faces, lying down on the side of the tracks, and he ripped a shirt to tie up our legs and to gag us. When he gagged me, I actually stuck my tongue out so that the gag wouldn't work. I could still talk. And Chris and I were talking to each other, kind of saying, what are we going to do? What should we do? And Chris just kept saying to me, everything's going to be okay. It's all okay. But he kept walking back up to the tracks. He would walk back up to the tracks and said that he was waiting for a friend, and he was carrying that bag with him the whole time, and just kept coming back down to us and then going back up to the tracks. So there were only seconds that we had to try to strategize or figure out what we wanted to do. But eventually, I don't know how much time passed, but I just remember our attacker carrying this large rock, and it was really hard for him to carry. And then he came over to Chris and hit Chris on the top of his head with it. And it really seemed like a dream. It seemed surreal. It didn't seem like it was actually happening, but when he hit Chris, it was going through my mind then of survival, and this automatically became the scene of, oh my God, this man wants to kill us. And it wasn't until that moment that I even thought, that just doesn't cross your mind. It doesn't cross your mind that someone wants to hurt you like that. He came over to me after he hit Chris, and I heard Chris gurgling, and I asked him to go turn Chris's head to the side so that he wouldn't choke on his own blood. And he actually went and did it. And came back over to me, and he said, he's gone, don't worry about him. And that's when he got on top of me, and it wasn't until that moment that I realized that he wanted to rape me. I started fighting him. I started kicking and screaming, and he actually stabbed me with that sharp object that he had in my neck, and he said, look how easily I could kill you.
All right, so Resendiz was born on August 1st, 1959 in Puebla, Mexico, as Angel Leoncio Reyes Resendiz. Mm-hmm. How did I do?
I think that's probably good. I heard it pronounced Angel at some point. So it depended on who was saying it, but
okay, yes,
yeah,
probably.
I think we're just
with my accent.
I think we're probably just going to stick with
I'm
Resendiz.
butchering it. Yeah. Little is really known about his childhood, other than it wasn't great. Big surprise, Andy. He had an abusive mother and really no father around at all. He was bullied in school for his looks and his stature. Apparently, he had something weird about his teeth.
Yeah, apparently he had some kind of buck teeth.
Yeah, some big teeth or whatnot. And apparently, he was also a victim of rape during his childhood. At least that's what he told a prison psychiatrist. And then that was in the end at a time when he would be wanting to gain any sympathy that he could. But I can also see this being his childhood.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah,
I'm not trying to say it's not true.
From what I heard, that they said, yeah, he didn't really have a father around. I think he tried to go live with his uncle for a little while, and his uncle was pretty abusive towards him. And then he ran away from home at like 12 and was just living on the streets. And that's where he was actually assaulted by a adult male. But he was kind of living on the streets at like 12 years old and just fending for himself after that. So yeah, it's a pretty rough childhood after that.
The train hopping, I think, had always kind of been part of his life. I think that was easy. That just became useful when he became a killer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was an easy way of transportation. It was free. It was, it could get you far distances pretty quickly.
Yep. And we do know by the age of 14, he had made it to the U.S. through Florida, but he was deported. And that was in 1976. That's how we know that, that was the first time he made. Well, maybe it wasn't the first time he made it.
This is the first time he got caught.
Exactly. Maybe he'd been back and forth a few times.
But yeah, this man gets caught. Oh, this man gets deported so many times.
So many times. In fact, over a 20-year period, Resendiz was deported to Mexico 17 times, having illegally entered the U.S. using a number of different names. It was all kinds of shit. He was convicted on at least 9 occasions for felonies, including burglary, but he would always be deported after he had served his sentence. Then he'd just turn around and come right back to the U.S. to steal and kill again.
This case
they really weren't tying him to murders at this time.
No, not yet. This case is we're not trying to. This case makes such the strongest argument for border control because of his resume of just being like, we're going to deport you. I'll see you on Tuesday. No, we're deporting you. Thursday good? No. Like nothing was stopping this guy.
I wasn't going to point it out, Andy.
Like, I don't know what system this guy had, but he was slick. They called him they said he was like a ghost getting in and out of everything.
Is the exception, okay?
Like I said, he was a ghost getting in and out of people's homes and apparently getting in and out of the country. Like, this man could just, boom, Texas, boom, Pueblo.
Well, he was making money, too. Apparently, he had a little operation going on, right? Where he'd come to the U.S., he was using trains to get around, robbing people who were close to the tracks, and basically robbing and killing people, anyone who had anything of value, especially if they were women. Mm-hmm. Because he really didn't like a fight. Like Andy said, that's where you kind of get those Night Stalker vibes, is where he's attacking people while they're asleep, attacking people, by sneaking up on them, getting that first initial hit with a heavy object.
Attacking elderly people.
Exactly. But he would attack these people and then steal from them and then head back to Mexico and sell this shit off to the highest bidder. Mm-hmm. So he had a little racket going on.
And that was one of the things with that little racket. They tried to do that, not to spoil anything. He tried to say that he was like, I was just doing this. I was only killing and I was only stealing. And it's like, well, you also raped a few women along the way.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, so you can't just say, "Oh, I'm just stealing for money and I had to kill." It's like you're also raping
most of his women.
Like
victims.
You raped your female victims, and you can't justify this part. So
absolutely not. Now what helped him avoid suspicion for so long. At least, I mean, it wasn't the main reason, but it definitely helped. He would actually work seasonal farm jobs, so he would blend in. He would ride to Florida and orange pick for a season, or go to Kentucky and harvest tobacco. Like, he was moving around and just making money too while he's there. Think about it, man. He's getting stuff and stealing merchandise to take back, and he's earning money.
Yeah, he's getting his paycheck, and he's stealing and taking money as well.
Exactly. But it was in 1986 where we finally know for sure that Resendiz killed his first victim. And that was an unidentified homeless woman in Texas. And there's really not a lot of information about that other than the evidence and the DNA were later tied back to that scene.
Yeah, he kind of confessed to it later on.
Exactly.
He confessed to more murders than he was charged with.
Exactly. But it wasn't until Resendiz killed 2 teenage runaways in 1997 in Central Florida that police were like, whoa. Okay, we got something bigger here. We definitely have a serial killer on our hands. And by 97, serial killer, that word was very popular.
Yeah, we'd already gone through this.
The 70s and the 80s.
Yeah, the 90s, people thought it was kind of like this, maybe we're on a downslope.
Okay,
we've got more,
everything's good.
There's more technology. We can keep track of them. There's more DNA. And it's like, oh my God.
It's like, okay, it's like, who's his victims? Literally anyone near a train track.
Anyone, anywhere. How about that?
Right. But on the night of August 29th, 1997, in Lexington, Kentucky, a young couple, Christopher Mayer and Holly Dunn, were walking along a railway tracks to a party at the University of Kentucky when Resendiz jumped out from behind this metal electrical box.
Yeah,
you see like a transformer or whatever.
You see them on the side of railway tracks all the time. Yeah. It's just, transformers, things to power all the things that are on the railroad.
Yeah. And he quickly was able to subdue the 2 teenagers and tied their hands and feet together and gagged Christopher. Then Resendiz walked away for a little while and came back with a large rock that weighed roughly 50 pounds and dropped it on Christopher's head, killing him probably instantly.
Yeah.
Then he proceeded to rape Holly Dunn, who finally stopped struggling when he told her how easy it would be for him to kill her as he held an ice pick to her throat. And this is one of the most horrific stories.
Because he doesn't it's so scary because he doesn't use the ice pick. He uses it only to scare her.
Yeah.
And then assaults her, says he's going to use an ice pick on her.
Yeah.
But then stands up, walks away like he's going to leave, and comes back with a big piece of wood and just proceeds to beat her until he thinks she's dead.
Yes.
He thinks he's killed her because he's beaten her so badly and so brutally. He thinks he's just, massacred this one on the railroad tracks and leaves her for dead.
So here she is, beaten, raped. She's suffering multiple facial fractures. And Holly somehow became the lone survivor of the railroad killer. And her testimony would eventually be huge.
Yeah, she got up. Like, she got up and walked to a house.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, it wasn't like somebody found them later on or anything, because they were out kind of, off on their own by the railroad tracks. And she somehow found enough strength to get up and walk herself, beaten, hands bound, walk to the closest house she could find.
Exactly. Meanwhile, Resendiz, his festivities are just getting started. He's still riding the rails. He's still committing murders all across the U.S. And in his wake, police found an elderly woman beaten to death in her home. Resendiz had entered the Texas home of Claudia Benton late one night on December 17th, 1998. Benton was found beaten to death with a bronze statue that was in her bedroom. Claudia had a sprained wrist and also a dislocated elbow, suggesting that she really fought back. She tried, man. She tried to save herself.
One of the cops said that I was in one of the documentaries I was seeing that the bronze statue that he beat, it was like a solid bronze statue that he beat her so savagely with that it broke. Like he broke like a bronze statue over her head by hitting her so many times.
Right, like a statue of kind of like a person, but it has a big square base. Is what I understood.
Yeah, think of
about
like
a foot tall, and then
think of like the Oscar statue or something like that, like a little bit bigger and just solid bronze. Like
Jesus.
Yeah, he didn't do anything like Richard. Like we talked about Richard Ramirez, who would come into the home a lot of times with like a single gun, like a gun, and like shoot somebody while they're sleeping, and then do his business or whatever, do his crimes. This guy just came. He never brings a weapon with him. He never comes into the home with a gun or a knife. Everything he does is like with something he finds in the home.
Right.
So it's one of the reasons it's so hard to track him too, because there's no gun he brought. There's no ballistics to match up. There's no even if you found him, it's like, well, did you bring this with you with the intent to kill somebody? Or it's one of those weird crimes where it's like, was this just household stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're not traveling with a weapon, you're not traveling with evidence, right?
Yeah. He's got nothing on him.
But it's hard to believe that he was able to subdue people so easily with things around him. Maybe he just made a bad decision and misjudged Claudia, and he thought, this will be heavy enough, and it wasn't. And she fought back, and I'm sure he didn't like that. I'm sure she got her licks in.
Humans are way more resilient than people realize.
Right.
It's always something that every serial killer you ever read about or research, they all like anyone that's ever had someone live or struggled to kill. They're like, they've openly said like people are harder to kill than you think.
Yeah. Well, they want to live. Shocker. Yeah. Shocker. But I guess this fight was a bit too much for him because his next victim, he takes a little different approach, Andy. On May 2nd of 1999, he entered the Weimar, Texas home of a pastor and his wife, which was behind their church, which just happened to sit very close to the railroad tracks. Resendiz beat Norman and Karen Cernick to death with a sledgehammer as they slept, and then sexually assaulted Karen.
Mm-hmm. This was the one that was actually much more almost Night Stalker-esque.
This is very Night Stalker-ish, because he would just take a .22 usually while they're sleeping, but he decided to just go sledgehammer, one direct hit. They're not moving.
No, he took one big swing with a sledgehammer to the husband, and then apparently kind of swung the sledgehammer to incapacitate the wife, and then took the husband out with one more swing just to be sure. Like, This was very much
brutal scene.
It was very much, like I said, very Night Stalker-esque. This was very much like a calculated. He would get into homes, and the people could not figure out how he was getting into homes sometimes so easily and so quietly.
I mean, these people lived in places where they didn't have to worry about this kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of the times they didn't.
But I don't know, just living next to train tracks, you wouldn't be worried about transient people like in your backyard and shit. I don't know.
I guess not. Sometimes people just get too comfortable.
You do get used to it. Mm-hmm. You do. No matter where you live, I can say I've lived in some weird places, and you just get used to it.
Yeah.
You really do. But by this time, the search for Resendiz was receiving national media attention. He was even appearing on an episode of America's Most Wanted. The FBI quickly found similarities between the Benton and the Cernick murder scenes, and the DNA obtained from both obviously matched.
Mm-hmm.
So the Kentucky murder of Christopher Mayer, who was with Holly Dunn, who was the survivor, that DNA also matched both of these cases as well. So the FBI now had obtained a federal warrant for Resendiz's arrest in May of 1999, and they were just getting started. Now they ended up having to form a multi-agency task force just to catch him.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, one of the things we talked about, like they didn't know his real name at first because he had been arrested so many times. Mm-hmm. He just kept giving fake names and fake aliases. So
exactly.
Even when they had his fingerprints on file, the fingerprints they had on file weren't his real name.
Right.
Because he had just been giving aliases every time he was getting deported.
Yep.
Like, why would I give my real name or the same name twice?
Exactly. And they missed him a lot. They missed him quite a bit. Over an 18-month period, the INS detained the railroad killer at least 9 times. And, of course, he was hiding behind fake aliases and just kept returning to Mexico. But the INS's biggest mistake came on the night of June 1st, 1999, when Resendiz was detained entering the U.S. in the desert near the Santa Teresa border, crossing into New Mexico. Once again, Resendiz gave him a different name, a different date of birth, and with authorities unaware there was a warrant for his arrest in connection with all these murders, obviously, he was voluntarily returned to Mexico the next day.
Mm-hmm. It was such a catch and release program. It was so much just like who are you? Okay, I trust I trust everything you just said. Okay, I'm gonna look that up, and okay, we're gonna send you home.
That's it.
It's like it was just so catch and release.
Yep. And just 2 days later, he slipped right back into Texas and committed 4 more murders over the course of just 12 days. First one happening on June 4th. Resendiz killed 2 people in 1 day. First, sexually assaulting a Houston school teacher named Naomi Dominguez before ultimately killing her with a pickaxe.
Yeah, this was pretty brutal.
This one is brutal. Then he proceeds to go out to her garage and he tries to steal her car, but he doesn't get her keys. I find this really odd.
He couldn't find her keys. Were like in a cabinet where she had like a key ring in the cabinet, and they were hanging on a hook in there. But he didn't go through the cabinets looking for anything, thinking about keys.
Well,
so yeah, the cops found them later on. The keys, like the keys are in the cabinet. Why? But he didn't open it, I guess.
Nice. Well, that was a crucial mistake because he wore no gloves. And because he didn't have the keys, he decided he was going to hotwire the car. And in the process of hotwiring the car, he had pulled off like this plastic piece around the steering column with 4 perfect fingerprints, dude. Mm-hmm. Just all 4 digits, bro, right on there. Ripped it off, throws it in the garage.
Doesn't even put it in the passenger seat.
Doesn't even put it in the passenger seat. But to be fair, I mean, his fingerprints got to be all over the place, right? He doesn't wear gloves.
No, he does. There's like one case they talked about that like they knew that he came through the window of one house, so they just literally like ripped off the entire window frame and preserved it as evidence.
Damn it!
They're like, what? Fuck it, we can't keep the
pay for that.
They're like, you could have just taken the prints. We got the frame. We have the technology to get the prints. We got the panes of glass too. Yeah, I see it. It's all intact. Okay.
Got a couple trash bags taped up there. Nice work.
All right.
Nice work, Johnson. Put that in the car.
Yeah, I don't think that's how you gonna evidence that. It's a very weird rack of evidence.
It really is.
Is that a window?
Is that a window? It's not a whole window.
Is that a Craftsman?
But anyway, Resendiz, he was headed to Schulenburg, Texas in the stolen car. And in Schulenburg, he used that same pickaxe to kill 73-year-old Josephine Konvicka. And then he left the pickaxe embedded in her skull.
Yeah, he started kind of leaving scenes. He's almost getting wrapped up in his own like zeitgeist and his own like fame of being the railroad killer, that he starts kind of like leaving scenes for the police to find, or whoever's going to find the body. He leaves it.
He was just liking reading about it and that kind of shit. You think he was going full serial killer at that mode?
Yes, he's
in level 3 serial killer right there, right?
Because there's one of the women he kills. They even find like a toy train, like sitting on her body. He goes like the police were talking about. He goes kind of like full berserker mode, where he knows he is the railroad killer, and he's kind of taunting the police. He knows they're all after him, but they can't catch him.
Right.
He feels like he's kind of invincible to an extent, like he can't be caught.
He does.
And yeah, he leaves a scene to where he literally he sits her up in bed with the pickaxe still in her head, and leaves her like sitting in the bed for whoever to come in to find. And like he would put like pictures or their like ID or something like in the room, so that would be like what they should look like compared to what they find. Like he became like so almost methodical, but also just like performative with his killing at the time.
Yeah.
Because he was just getting so wrapped up
sadistic,
in it.
really.
Yeah, he was becoming more interested in the killing than, even if he was trying to justify it at first with robbery, he was now doing the killing part.
I agree. I agree. That was the main focus at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, after this killing in Schulenburg, he's now heading north, where Resendiz invades the home of 80-year-old George Morber, just 100 yards from a railroad track in Gorham, Illinois. The railroad killer shot Morber in the back of the head with a shotgun, right before Morber's 57-year-old daughter, Carolyn Frederick, arrived at his home. And in true Resendiz fashion, he wasn't going to leave any witnesses, Andy.
Nope.
And Carolyn, like all of his other women victims, were raped, and she was beaten to death in her father's home. Now, at this point, anyone who lived anywhere close to a train track was paying close attention, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, news was getting around. Again, much like Richard Ramirez, how he terrified like the Sacramento area. You know what
everyone's
I'm saying?
buying dogs and shit.
Yeah, exactly. Gun sales are going up. Also at this time, Resendiz was placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. Okay.
Yeah. Once you get there, you get real media coverage. They make announcements about that. They are like, hey, somebody made the list. Here's their picture and everything about them everywhere.
Exactly. And behind the scenes, Resendiz's sister was working with Texas Ranger Drew Carter by encouraging her brother to give himself up, and actually was later awarded $86,000 for aiding in his surrender.
Pretty sweet deal.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Turning in the old bro.
Because he does. He goes on full, like he goes into full hiding at this point, because now that he has become the America's Most Wanted, he can't go anywhere. He can't get on the trains. He can't go to any of his labor jobs, or he can't hide out anywhere that he would normally hide out. So he's now like in full, like Ted Bundy cabin mode or whatever. Like he is hiding for a little bit and just becoming like so paranoid.
I think he went back to Mexico at this time too.
He does.
And that makes it very difficult to find him.
Because he's in Mexico and he is in full on hiding because he's afraid of like bounty hunters. He's afraid of U.S. Marshals. He's afraid of like somebody just coming to kill him or collecting a bounty on him.
Yeah.
So his sister kind of like plays into that paranoia. Like, hey, I can help you. We can make sure you're safe. Like you're going to be okay. Like, I mean, not okay, but we're going to get you. We're not going to, you're not going to die today.
I will be more financially okay.
Yes. One of us will be okay.
I mean, at this point, brother or not, you got to be like, he's kind of a piece of shit. Like he's a danger to society. No, absolutely. Yeah. He is. There's not a reason that you couldn't turn him in. There's no justifying it either. Because they had to go, the U.S. Marshals went to his wife because he had a wife and like 3-month-old child in Mexico who had no idea that he was doing all these things. That's crazy.
And they brought her up to interview her, and they were like, we're pretty sure your husband is the railroad killer. And they showed her all the evidence and all these things, and the wife was like, yeah, I believe you. Yep, I 100% believe you. And he's like, have your husband ever brought you anything from his trips? She's like, yep. Yes, he has. And like, one of the U.S. Marshals went down to her village in Mexico and just like, she had a bunch of jewelry or gifts and stuff that he had given her.
Yep.
It was all from the crime scenes. It was all from his victims. And she was like, yeah, you need to catch him. He's bad. He's
bad news.
You can take all this. You can take all this back.
Well, it's kind of surprising, but he had a lot more family around him than I thought. Because on July 13th, 1999, he actually did turn himself in, and some of his family was there. I'm sure his sister was there.
His sister was there with the marshals, but his brother was the one who like drove him there and walked him across the bridge. Yes,
right on. Yeah, and that was in El Paso at the border crossing bridge. Resendiz was evaluated later on, and he was labeled mentally disturbed, but not insane. And I agree with that. Yeah, he's not insane. He's not insane. You don't get away with it that long if you're insane.
Oh no,
you know what I mean, you're covering your tracks too well.
Yeah, I listened to the guy, like the psychiatrist who evaluated him, and he asked him very much. He was like, "You know right from wrong," because Resendiz started saying like, "Oh, I was acting on God's will. I was doing the will of God by killing these people." And the psychiatrist was like, "Then why did you rape them?" And it was like even the psychiatrist was like. He started being almost like, why are you asking me about that? Like, we're talking about the murders. Like, we're not talking about why are you talking about the rape? We're talking, like, I was working on God's orders with the murders. And he's like, well, what about the rape? Why are you talking about the rape?
Why are you talking about the rape?
Talking? I don't know why why you hung up on that. I don't, like, he was so, like, he was like, why are you asking me this? And the psychiatrist was like, you're so, like manipulative, like right from wrong, and you don't want to talk about the wrong, like the stuff that you can't defend,
exactly,
like the stuff that you can't make up a crazy excuse for. You don't want to talk about because it's wrong. And so the psychiatrist is like, yeah, he's disturbed, but he's not insane.
No, because he knows he needs to hide it. But on May 18th, 2000, with a big help from Holly Dunn's testimony, he was finally convicted for capital murder. Mainly of Claudia Benton, and he also confessed to 8 other murders and was sentenced to death following an automatic appeal.
I did love the Texas Rangers who were talking about it in one of the documentaries. They were just like, listen, we know there's a lot of cases where people want to get pulled against him, but listen, we only need to get him for one, okay?
That's right.
You only need to get him for one. You get one capital murder in Texas. You don't really need the other ones, okay?
That's it.
This guy's like so Texas death penalty confident. He's like, get him for one, okay? Which one's the most solid? Which one's the most clean cut?
Yep.
That's all we need, okay? That's all we need. Don't matter if we even get the rest of them.
Nope.
I do love, one of the cops was like...
And he's already dead, too. He'd been dead.
One of the cops was so great about how, like, I love this little... Like, the final jab that one of the investigators got in was like, like, not in so many words, was like, by the way, when he showed up to trial, fat as fuck. Like, one of the investigators was like, probably gained like 40, 50 pounds. Looked totally different. So much weight gained. It's totally different. I was like, wow. Just call him fat. Like, this cop is just like, look at this fat ass.
Just roasting this guy.
Got so fucking fat. What are you doing? You in jail? Would you eat the...
Don't you think he may have been trying to hide, like, look completely different?
No, it was like, when they apprehended him to when the time he showed up in court. The cop was just like, he showed up in court, like, so fucking fat. Like, I just expect, you almost want to hear just like some Boston cop be like, you fucking fatty.
Hey, fucking fat.
Would you get some dunks, you fatty? Like this cop was just roasting him for good reasons, absolutely. But it was just a great little ending to that police documentary and all the legal stuff going on. Be like, also he showed up really fat. I just want to point that out.
Right.
He was fat.
Hey, man, well, stick it to him, right? It's his day.
You know what? If that's your last 5 minutes on camera, you know what? Leave it at that. He's fat. Anything else you want to say? No, he's fat.
But on the day of his execution, he did ask forgiveness from the family members of his victims in attendance and from God. And he asked forgiveness for allowing the devil to deceive me. I thought it was God's orders.
Mm-hmm. Well, he said he allowed the devil into him, and the devil did this.
He thought it was God, but it was the devil. Gosh, dang it!
Oh, God damn it!
What gave it away? Was it the murder?
Was it the
rape?
Was it the rape? Was it the murder?
Was it the theft?
I
don't know what
any
it was.
Was it all the above?
That stuff. I don't know. But his final words were, "I deserve what I am getting." And I totally agree. And he was put to death on June 27th, 2006.
It's one of the only times a public execution was ever just an entirely a group. Amen. Just a whole bunch of head nods like
yeah.
Yeah.
You do.
You're right.
Yeah.
I'll give you that one.
That's right.
You want a high five? Oh, you can't lift your arm?
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it's taking effect.
It's one of the only times ever. I'm just imagining it's I deserve this.
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
I don't feel bad about that. Like the one time the executioner's like, I don't feel bad about this one.
Yeah.
You're right.
And, unlike a lot of other states, Texas don't let them sit and stew and like become completely different people that you have to kill 20 years later.
No, he was 6 years maybe?
He went in, he was convicted in 2000 and killed in 2006.
And that was after he had an appeal. And
yeah. And your reign of terror was from like 86 to 99. So, yeah, fuck you, dude.
Yeah, like Texas said, we only need to get you for one. We got you for all of them.
Yeah.
We can only kill you back once. So,
yeah, that's right.
If we could, we would do it 8 more times.
He picked a bad state to do most of his murders.
Right. To do most of your capital murders in. You picked I mean, I get it. Close to home, close to the tracks, but still, man. Like I said, they only need one. They will get you back.
And we want to get you back smelling good this spring.
Yeah, you do want to get me back smelling good. I am smelling funky
Andy.
over here.
Yeah, it's getting a little warm in the studio, Andy. I noticed.
Spring has sprung.
Right? Did you not bring your Oh My Gaia with you, Andy?
I did. It's in the car. I promise.
Damn it. Oh My Gaia is an innovative, all-natural deodorant, fragrance, and beard oil company specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products, guys. And their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while still maintaining effectiveness. And there's tons of scents to choose from at Oh My Gaia. Guys, go check them out at ohmygaia.com. That's OHMYGAIA.com. We even have our own scent, True Crimepine, along with many others, including Barbershop, Sailor, Sweet Pea, Pear, Bergamot, Amber, Fireside, Honeysuckle, Lumberjack, Leather, Dreamsicle, just to name a few. Again, that's at ohmygaia.com, OHMYGAIA.com. And because you're True Crime Guys listeners, you can use the code word Crimepine, 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 all one word, for 15% off your order at ohmygaia.com. Also, give them a follow at shop_ohmygaia on Instagram to know about all the deals and new scents going on. All right? Make sure you do that, guys. There's a link to Oh My Gaia right below the description of this episode, as well as a link to Patreon, patreon.com/truecrimeguys, the best way to support what we do here at TCG Productions. We appreciate you guys listening, leaving reviews, everything you do, giving us a follow on social media. It helps the show a lot. We really appreciate that. But I think that's about it for today. Andy, you got anything?
I don't think so, Michael. I think we had good headlines last week. I think we got a few more good cases coming up this month. And guys, like I said, spring has sprung. Get you some Oh My Gaia. Get you smelling good for summertime.
That's right, guys. Well, until next time, guys, I guess you just have to keep on creeping.
Bye.